Yes, it's time for
Creepos.
This is a new segment on the Creep Off, and the reason why we do this segment is to prove once and for all that the Creep Off is the best true crime podcast on the internet today. The way that we do that is by being very petty and by analyzing all the other true crime podcasts one at a time to show you, the fine folks who enjoy the Creep Off, the Cuzzaroos, the Vinny's Creepaholics, whatever your guys are.
The True Believers.
Whatever that
you
is.
You're not even acknowledge the True Believers?
Whatever that is.
The Creepomaniacs, the Scum Parade Merry Marchers.
We want to show all of those people they have chosen the right true crime podcast. And today, I am going to review a show called True Crime Garage. Are you familiar with this show, Vinny Paulino?
You know that I'm not, Carl.
Well, it's a pretty popular one. That's why I ask.
I don't listen to true crime shows.
All right. Well, let's check out how this one starts
Except
off.
for Nancy Grace.
True Crime Garage, I will tell you, is not hosted by one woman. It's not hosted by two women. It's hosted by two men. That's right. Nick and the Captain invite you to grab a chair, grab a beer, and join them as they talk some true crime. This is how things start off, Vinny.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
This week we are very excited to be featuring Eternal Autumn, brewed by the great women and men over at Track 7 Brewing Company. This is a West Coast style India Pale Ale featuring HBC 586, Idaho 7, and Mosaic hops.
Who fucking cares?
Is this Opie's new show at Gebhardt's?
Even the guys are doing this. They're pairing true crime with alcohol. With these guys, it's always beer for some reason. So it's like, hey, we're going to talk about true crime, but also check out this beer we got. And he goes on to explain everything about the beer and how great the beer is. Vinny, what is going on here? What is it with the true crime and drinking? Why is that connected?
I cannot figure it out.
I thought it was a lady thing. I thought it was the wine thing.
I was just about to say, I feel like this is a very woman type approach to this.
Yes.
It's like looking at exactly what type of true crime shows are popular and then trying to play off of it, but we're dudes.
I will say this. One thing I'll give them is when the women talk about the wine they're drinking, they go on and on about the label and the colors and all this nonsense. Oh, there's notes of pine. You're like, whatever the fuck they're trying to say about this shit that I don't care about. These guys get right to it. And actually, this guy, Nick, sounds like a professional broadcaster. He sounds like he might have a radio background.
And you are going to want to try this one because here we go, Captain. I'm going to do it. Eternal Autumn, 5 out of 5 bottle caps.
Boom. Get you some.
And in the garage, it's always a great autumn because of all of you out there in listener land. So let's give some thanks and praise.
You out there in listener land. Wow, this is old-timey radio talk going on right here.
Well, all of you folks that are watching us in Streamerton, I hope you're enjoying the show.
Yeah, Middle Streamer Brook. Listener land. All the people out in listener land. And then they give some shout-outs.
Streamfield.
And then they have to go, and then they have to go through and they have to do their roll call thing. So they explain, all right, these are the people who are contributing to us or paying our beer fund is what they say, and they call out the people's names.
And this is a true crime show?
This is a true crime show, Betty. I will give them credit, though. They get into the intro of their show. So after they give the shout-outs, they go into their social media stuff, and then they get right into the intro of the show.
Yeah, BWRUN Beer Run. If you're not following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, then you're missing out on the true crime conversations. Make sure you follow us there at True Crime Garage. Colonel, that's enough of the business.
All right, everybody gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime.
I'll give them this. That's 2.5 minutes into the episode. They do get right to it. They don't drag it out like I've heard so many other shows. We're in minute 12, minute 14. They're still talking about wine and the shoes they bought at the mall. Like, shut the fuck up and get to the story already.
Oh, so you mean that the guys got to the point before the women's shows usually do?
Yes.
Check. Okay.
Yeah, so that's something that maybe some of these ladies could take some notes on. By the way, this whole thing where I want to follow them on social media, be part of the conversation about true crime, hard pass.
You don't even want to conversate about true crime with me on this show.
Right. I do this for a living. I don't want to do it. I do it under protest. I'm not going to get on their Instagram account and start messaging them. All right. So then let's get into the fucking good stuff. Let's see what's going on. I want some panty dampening murder porn. Let's go.
Tracy was found having been attacked and beaten to death inside her apartment that she shared with her 18-month-old daughter.
Nice.
Tracy and her ex-husband shared custody of the little girl.
Are you moist yet or what, Vinny? This is what we tune in for on these true crime shows.
Just under the arms.
I believe that.
Carl.
That story checks out.
The guy, the captain, does he talk at all? Because he's only said 2 words in this whole thing.
All right. Brilliant observation, Vinny, because I'm not sure why this guy exists at all. And I will I'll show you some of the drop-ins that he does.
Okay.
Here's one of the ones that they're telling the story about this Tracy Harkness.
But after the sun goes down, if we are talking about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, it turns to a ghost town rather quickly.
Pretty standard Midwestern town.
Late at night, you're going to get a few people out, really hardly any cars out on the street.
Dynamite drop-in money at broadcast school has really paid off.
Dude, the captain has 1 line per page on this script that they're reading, and they just let him say something randomly, and it's like, all right, you're part of the show. Good job, buddy.
I can't imagine what he would be like if there wasn't a script.
Oh, dude. This show is bizarre sounding because, as I said, it is very professional, but it's also dry as hell. They just read it very straight.
Yeah, who wants to listen to true crime for people who could hold their alcohol?
Right. What's the point of that? Get wasted, fellas. You got 6.4 ABV in that IPA. Let's go. So, Vinny, I listened to the first part of Tracy Harkness. There are 4 parts to this, totaling 3.5 hours. This is a woman who was killed in her apartment, and that was 30 years ago. They still don't know who did it. And I got to listen to 3.5 hours of this. There's so many details that they get into. It's too much.
Steve told investigators that Lori knocked on the back door of the apartment but got no answer. They went to the back door because that was the door Tracy and pretty much everyone else used. This portion of the apartment complex was built in a U-shape around a rear parking lot where the residents had spaces to park their cars. As a result, most residents didn't use their front doors other than to get their mail or the newspaper. Tracy was no exception.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Dude, literally, all they're explaining is the people who found her body couldn't get in the door they normally go in, so they walked around to the front and walked in and found her body. But he has to explain, because of the way this is set up, and, she does get the newspaper, she will go to the door for the newspaper, but only on the weekends, and then they go, it's like, shut the fuck. This is why it's 3.5 hours long. Vinny.
Normally on Thursdays, the neighbor brings out the garbage through the side door.
Right. This is why it's 3.5 hours long. And I guarantee they're making most of this shit up because this happened 30 years ago, and who could possibly care about these details? This is a time filler.
I love how the people go on forever with these cases that even the cops don't care about.
Right. Even the cops, if you were telling them all this information, you'd be like, okay, yeah. And then you found the body? And then what happened then? All right, let's get right to that part of it.
And that is a big part of this because, if you ever watch the way cops, have to sit there and listen to people try to tell them what happened.
Yeah. Well, and then my boyfriend, Frank, we're on and off again. Actually, I'm not with Frank right now. I'm mad at Frank. But I might get back together with him. He's in the doghouse. All right, ma'am, whatever. You and Frank did what? What happened?
Oh, he shot me in the shoulder.
I don't know why I turned into Nancy Grace.
I bleeded everywhere.
All right. So let's get into, so we heard that they start the show off after they talk about their social media and becoming a part of social media and giving them money and all that stuff. So, all right, let's start the show, guys.
The Bowling family wants the killer to be caught for the sake of Tracy's now grown daughter. Tracy's family and the Grove City Police Department are hoping that new technology and DNA testing will lead to an arrest.
Well, hold on a second. The family wants the murderer to be caught for the sake of the daughter who never knew her mom. The daughter was under 2 years old. So now she's 31 years old, and she's worried about this? She's like, I didn't even know that bitch. What the fuck do I care? I didn't grow up with her. You guys are the ones who knew her.
But did I tell you we're forever Amber Autumn Lager?
Yes.
Who cares? These people suck.
All right. So I want to ask you this, Vinny. Has this ever worked once in the history of trying to solve a cold case?
Tracy's family has something to say to the killer. If you did this, get it off your conscience and go tell. Tracy's family wants this killer brought to justice. If you know who killed Tracy Renee Harkness, call the Grove City Police Department.
Could you imagine you get away with murder? It's been 30 years. They don't know who you are.
No
They're
way.
off your scent, and you're like, you probably feel pretty bad about this, right? Like, no, I can't believe I got away with it. What do you think I'm going to tell on myself? That's insane.
You know what that plea is called? The fucking Hail Mary.
Yes.
Of fucking true crime.
Dude, the show starts with a Hail Mary. It starts with that.
Oh God.
So bad. I bet you feel pretty bad about it, don't you?
I
No.
bet you're not real happy with yourself. Maybe you want to get that off your chest.
Listen, in the weeks immediately afterwards, I was paranoid about getting caught. I felt really bad about what I had done. 30 years have gone by.
8 years after that, I met a nice lady,
Yeah.
settled down. I have a family.
Oh, I started sleeping great 2 months later. Are you kidding me? You think I'm worried about it now, 30 years later?
Oh, her daughter? She didn't even know her.
Right. And she's doing great. So what's the difference? So you heard when I was just explaining here. They do that little intro thing. They talk about the beer they're drinking. They talk about social media. They get props and roll calls, people who are giving the money. Then we do a little thing. So this is what happens to go into the show.
All right, everybody gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime.
Okay. So
This true crime is brought to you by Syracuse.
I know it sounded like that. So that's the start of the show, and then they go in and they say, hey, if you know anything about this case, turn yourself in. And then this happens.
This is the still unsolved homicide case of Tracy Harkness, 30 years later. And this is True Crime Garage.
What an interesting choice for music.
Is this Patrick Michael? They're starting again? Just start. What are you doing? How many times are you going to tease you're going to do a podcast? Let's go. I'm listening to a podcast. Start the podcast.
I like how they started off with the plea, and then they were like immediately, the still unsolved murder, because it obviously didn't work.
Yeah. No shit. All right. So the amount of talking that the captain does is interesting to me. I wonder if maybe we should start decreasing your workload a little bit.
Her recent employer said she was friendly and easy to work with, but she spent a lot of time on the phone on personal calls. When she died, she was working at a new job as a secretary. She also had a part-time job a few nights a week helping out at a friend's jewelry business.
So she definitely had a full plate.
Tracy was a longtime member of the Grace Memorial Church.
She had this job. She had this other thing. So she had a full plate.
I've never been accused of having a full plate. But, Carl,
Not before you sit back down again.
I like to think that this guy is just like a war veteran who's a paraplegic in a wheelchair. That's about all they could get out of him.
Dude, I would love if you talked that little. This show would be so much better if you could just learn what get the captain's role going on here. Host Nick and the captain invite you to grab a chair, grab a beer, and join them as he talks some true crime. This is no ordinary garage. It's a rabbit hole of true crime with a generous supply of alcohol and banter to lighten the load. What the fuck does that even mean? Hold on, let me read that again. This is the second sentence of the description of this show. This is no ordinary garage. It's a rabbit hole of true crime with a generous supply of alcohol and banter to lighten the load. I don't think they understand what a rabbit hole is. I don't think they understand what a load is.
Oh, they know what a load is. All right.
The captain's got the banter down. I'll give him that. From international atrocities to heinous stories on home turf, dive headfirst into a different case each week and enjoy a cold one whilst you there. Well, hold on a second. Dive into a different case each week. I told you this one goes on for 4 fucking weeks. Just this one case. Like, wrap it up in 1 week, and I will. That's fine.
Are you saying that these folks don't know what they're talking about in their own description of their show?
If you consider yourself an armchair detective, you're in the right place, and you're amongst friends. For the mystery seeker, True Crime Garage presents an archive of missing persons, unsolved and cold cases, plus accounts of infamous serial killers and chilling solved cases. Ooh, chilling solved cases.
I always am more chilled when I found out who did it and why.
What's the difference between an unsolved and a cold case? Isn't that the same thing? Well, both unsolved and cold cases.
That is correct. Same thing.
I mean, I guess it's the length of time, I guess, that went by. True Crime Garage has just one rule. Don't litter. Remember to not take yourself too seriously, because if you do, nobody else will. What? That came out of fucking nowhere.
I despise this description.
What was the point of that? This description's all over the place.
Why are they trying to be so folksy and quaint when they're discussing grisly murder?
I don't know. You don't need words like amongst friends. It's just, no one talks like that.
And what was the line? And have a beer with us.
Yeah. Grab a chair, grab a beer, and join them as they talk some true crime. There's something about a cold one or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Whilst you're there, grab yourself a cold one whilst you're there.
Well, I mean, why not just be honest with you? This podcast isn't great. You might want to get drunk first. You might enjoy it better. Like, we've said this many times in the Isotopes. The drunker you get, the better we sound. I think that's what these guys are trying to say. Is like, yeah, you might want to crack open a six-pack and then turn this on.
Yeah. I feel like this is like my grandfather trying to explain anything serious to me when I was a kid. He'd sit down and be like, all right, we're going to explain this.
Yeah.
Cracks the beer. We'll get through this together.
Now, this is what calories do to your body, Vincent. And you're like, I don't want to hear about this. I'm not listening. La, la, la,
Is
la,
it dinner time?
All right, here's the last clip that I have. This is just some editorializing from the captain that I personally found unnecessary, but I'll let you decide. I'll let you judge for yourself here, Vinny.
According to Tracy's friends, she and her ex-husband got along very well and spoke almost daily. This because they shared custody of little Megan.
Well, in a perfect world, all people that shared kids together would have a healthy relationship for their kids.
No shit, Sherlock! No shit!
You don't say.
Thanks, Captain.
Thanks, Captain. You know, in a perfect world, if you have joint custody, you get along with each other. Yeah, in a perfect world. Thanks, Captain.
In a perfect world, most people would have pulled out.
Yeah, correct. All right, Vinny, that's what I have for us. True Crime Garage, which is a very big show. It's so dry and so boring. These guys do not have any personality whatsoever. It sounds like an AM radio host from yesteryear.
You know what I
talking
find,
to Listenerland.
I find insufferable these shows where they're these bores. Like, we're having a beer, so we're cool and hip. Boring people drink beer too.
Yes, a lot of them. And I apologize for being so boring.
All right.
I won't apologize for my beer drink.